allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dave?
Gracious and Almighty Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together to gather together like minds to search our talents and become better at what we do. Thank you for everyone and all the families represented here tonight. Give us safe travels home. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dave. All right. Just have a few quick announcements, and then we're going to go to our presentation. The first of which is if you want to participate in the 50-50, see Jim. Where you at, Jim? See Jim. 50% of the proceeds go to you, 50% go to the club. Oh, I forgot to. I'll get it at the break. We went to the Bill Powell's celebration of life, and his wife Jan gave me a card to give to the club. I have it in the car, the truck, and I'll bring it in the at the break and pass it around, let you see it. Shop visits are resuming. The next one will be at Jim's shop out in Plant City, September 17th, which is this coming Saturday at 9 o'clock. And I'll send out an email with the address and all that stuff for you. So, remind you. What was that? Oh. Again, be thinking about your fair entries. We're meeting Sunday with Brenda at the fair to go over some things and all. And just want to remind you of that. Real quick, Christmas party. It's been offered, Larry and Trey Larson, their family has a huge barn dominium on their property in Plant City. It's brand new and beautiful, and they've graciously offered to let us have a Christmas party there, and we can cater it out. We don't want to force anybody into anything, so I think it's a great opportunity, but if anybody has any other ideas or, yes, sir?
Sounds good. My place is available, the cigar lounge.
Okay.
And then outdoor patio area, 1,000 square foot area. We can cater it in, whatever y'all want to do.
Okay. So I'll be putting a little more information out by email, so just be thinking about it because it is getting closer toward December. So Birch is available. Kenwood, is there still any left?
There's 15 pieces left.
15 pieces. Okay.
That is so good.
All right.
It was full.
And before we go to the next thing, new visitors. Any new guests? Yes, sir. You mind standing?
Stroud Curran, former member of the
Ira.
Sorry.
Stroud Curran, former member of around 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Thought I'd give it
Right. Thank you for coming,
You never picked it up.
Stroud said he.
John? Right.
Right. Stroud said he saw what we were doing and saw their YouTube videos and stuff, and he said, you know what, I think I'll look at them again and, see what they're doing, so appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I'm Walt Rogers. I'm a retired railroad conductor.
Okay.
And just want to get interested in something different to do, so want to see what y'all have to offer.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Hope you find that, it's comfortable here for you and you enjoy meeting people.
Thank you.
If you want to join, it's $25 with your CD. I think there's one other, right?
Back of the back.
Dan in the back.
Yeah, Dan Lasher, new member.
Hi, Dan. What kind of woodworking do you do?
I dabble in a little bit of power carving and CNC work.
Cool.
Old
Cool. Power carving. Yes, ma'am.
Regina Britton, a stay-at-home mom.
Cool.
And
All right, good. Do you do any woodworking?
I would put together.
Yeah, okay. That's the start, yeah. When you get the bug, then you just continue on and on and on.
I hope this is not your night out. Mark.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'm Albert Tahira. Been woodworking, if you count model airplanes in balsa wood, for, I don't know, about 4 years. But other than that, I just recently bought a big CNC to replace my little CNC, because I like computers and stuff like that. And I'm really not good at woodworking, but I love making guitars and things like that, so.
Well, we've got some CNC people in here,
Yeah,
if you're,
I was here
like
last
Stacy and some of these, there's some other people in here that can guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, this may take just a couple minutes, but, if you saw, yes, another one?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
My name is John Link. My neighbor is Taylor, that works here.
Okay,
And his father lives across the street from me. And they
Yes,
invited me
John.
for months to come over here.
okay.
I'm here, and they're not.
Right. They're usually here.
But you got
Don't let them
witnesses.
forget it.
Yeah, they're usually here.
So, I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all do. I've done some work, woodworking. I built furniture for my daughter when she was newborn, and she is now in her forties. A few years ago, I built our dining room table that we have in our house now, and the sideboard.
Very cool.
Done some dabbling in furniture. I've done some hand pottery. Looking to see if this is what I want to do. I just recently retired.
Okay, it's a great pastime, so welcome.
This is a good group.
Yeah. All right, this PA system, which I think everybody would agree is of benefit, you can hear in the back. This, good, that was good. This belongs to Trey Larson, and he's been bringing it in for us. So I think the club needs to purchase one. We've been looking at different things online and stuff, and it looks like a decent one can be had for around $400. Now, John just told me, how much is that one? I don't know. $299. Might be the best. Well, John, you mind standing up and telling what you found?
I found, at the pawn shop on 60, I stopped by there yesterday, to look. They've got a Fender Passport, which is a portable PA system. It has 2 speakers that mount on it that you can also put on poles. It's got several, I mean, it's more than what we need, but it's an awesome price of $175. Comes with the cables and everything. Doesn't come with mics, but I believe I've got some mics that I can donate to the club, because I used to do MC work and bike nights and stuff like that, and I still have some stuff left over. So it's a really good deal. It's more than what we need, but it's cheaper than buying a small little one that, you know.
Right, right. And he said he could meet me up there and we could check it all out and make sure everything's working on it. And
Just make sure it's wireless capable, so you can have wireless mics and stuff with it.
Well, that's, the mics that I have a receiver on the end that you plug into it.
Okay.
So that would make it wireless.
All
It
right.
wouldn't be like this one where it's Bluetooth, but.
any other discussion in this with PA? Sounds good. Yes, sir.
I know Sam's Club has, for about $199, one that has Bluetooth, and it's kind of like that, but about this tall, this wide.
And I have a Sam's Club car.
Okay, all right.
So do I.
If, you know, Bluetooth is a requirement.
Well, maybe we need to like have a show of hands on which direction we should go here because, yes, sir.
Mark, what about putting a dollar value on it, and then that way you can research the best avenue to figure out, first of all, what dollar value the club is willing to spend.
I thought we did that already.
Yeah, I think it was 200 earlier,
Yeah.
but
Why don't you just check out the one at the pawn shop?
that's what I'm.
If it suits their needs and then you feel that, yeah, it'll last more than 2 meetings, then go for it. Other
Okay.
than that, if we have to invest an additional $200, get something that's gonna work and it's gonna last.
Yeah.
Something for 2 meetings in 3 months, we're just.
Well, this is a good quality unit, so,
Well,
yeah, so,
Wouldn't we need Bluetooth? I mean,
yeah,
for
it's
something?
with
He's got
that.
plugins for it. that
There's
makes
plugins
sense.
to make it Bluetooth. Yes, sir.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor that the club invest in a PA system for use to make it easy for everybody to hear.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah, we already did.
Sound redundant.
Yeah. All right, so does everybody agree that John and I will go and check out that unit and see if it works, and if it does and it's good, we purchase it? $175. Yes. Yes, Ira?
Hey,
Okay.
I'm with you.
There you go. All right, well, as you can see, Tyler and Tony are ready to rock and roll and show us a little bit about glue-ups this evening. And they just recently also went to what was it, International Woodworkers thing?
In Georgia.
Fair, yeah, and they talked with people at Tight Bond and stuff, right?
Yeah, we actually got to interview a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of different companies, and
Yeah.
got to hear what the experts said about things.
Yeah. So let's give them a warm welcome. Yes.
The Roman days of going into night fighting.
What's going on, guys? Good, good. My name's Tony. This is my partner, Tyler.
How's it going, guys?
We are TNT Industries. So today, we're going to show you how to glue up some boards. And we have 12 boards to show you on, and these will be a variety of ways to glue up. Now, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to glue ups is milling. The flatter your wood is, the better it is, period. The flatter your wood is, the better. So we highly recommend that, especially if you're doing a flat glue up like this one, you got to face joint your wood first, then you edge joint it with your jointed face, then you plane it, and then you rip the last side. Now that seems basic, but there are some exceptions to that rule that you can get away with. If you don't have a joiner that can fit the piece of wood, for example, if these pieces of wood were wider, you can get away with planing the wood in a couple of different scenarios and not face joining. So if you only plane the wood and you're gluing up thin strips, kind of like these ones right here, as long as the edge is flat and the top is flat, you can actually press the boards together and the tension doesn't cause your board to warp after the glue up, at least in our experience. However, another way you can get around this if you can't joint the wood or you don't have a planer sled to flatten the wood is you can glue up the board and then take it to someone like Triple L Rustic to get it CNC flattened afterwards. Or you can use a router with a router sled. And it's kind of like an easy but more work-intensive way to get a flat glue up. So now I want to talk a little bit about...
Second one's not very good. It's just going to stay.
Yeah, it's fine. Now I want to talk a little bit about board placement and how you should arrange them. On some of these boards here, let's see. Let's just move these ones. I have already pre-drawn how the grain is lining up. Grain has a tendency not to be straight this way and a tendency not to be straight this way unless you get quarter sawn wood, right? So when you're gluing boards up together, if you see these lines, the goal is to try to make them go opposite each other. So if they're at a nice easy angle like this to see, then you just want to make mountains and valleys. And so that way, when your wood twists and warps, which it's going to, because all wood does that, it moves, it expands and contracts somewhere around 1/8 of an inch per 6 to 8 inches, depending on the variety of wood. So you want to have those mountains and valleys. So over time, while your wood is expanding and contracting, it's keeping more or less a straight line. Because no matter what, wood is going to move, right? It's never going to stay perfectly flat right out of the planer. All right, so
Is it time for questions?
I will take all questions at the end, and we'll have plenty of time for questions, and we can answer any of them. So what Tyler's doing here, he's gluing up 2 ambrosia glue-ups. And when the presentation is done, feel free to come look. I have the grains marked out on each side so you can see how we glued it up. And we have them numbered on the other side. Now, that's something I want to talk about a little bit too. To make your glue-ups easier, there are 2 ways you can do markings to just help you do it right. One way is marking these grains, especially if you have room to cut off or sand it off. But another way is, especially if you're trying to line up the boards, you don't have a lot of room to cut off the ends. You line up your boards, you put a straight edge, and you just simply mark a line. And then another thing I like to do is I like to number the boards in the order that I wanted to glue them up. So when it comes to actually gluing up a lot of boards like this, you don't have to think about it. You know, you already have them numbered. You have a straight line where you want your grain to line up, and that's pretty much it as far as marking. It makes it a lot easier over time. So here we have 2 flat glue ups, and we have the grains going back and forth as much as we could, because you can't always get it perfect. Some of them will, instead of just being an easy angle, some of them will just S through it. You just got to do your best and learn over time with that. Another thing I would want to recommend is while you're doing your glue-ups, you get a piece of cardboard or something, and you can put it under to save the glue from falling. We might get a little glue on the ground, so sorry, Rockler, but we'll scrape it off. All right, so here, Tyler is starting to glue up little butcher block boards, which is a great way to use thin scrap pieces. All we did, we actually remilled these pieces because we already did this demonstration, but because we didn't want to mill up all new wood, I just cut the pieces again and re-S4S them. But these are butcher block glue ups. And this one's a nice way to show you. You know, we just took scrap pieces of walnut, we milled them, glued them up, and this is something you can do with scrap, and it actually ends up being really profitable. All these glue-ups we're doing here usually have margins of like 60 to 80%. So if you're getting lumber like at retail price, you can glue them up like this. This is about I'd say before it was milled 2 times. This was like 2 or 4 board feet. It was 8/4, 12-inch by about 2 feet, so it's 4 board feet or so. And in ambrosia maple, you know, when you make a nice board like this, you can actually sell it for about $100 after you finish it. You know, so these are all good varieties, and they're really good. They're really good glue ups for the market around here. We actually have had a lot of success with all these ones you're going to see. All right. And now I'm going to whip out my notes so I don't forget. Yeah, you can sell these finished boards for $100. All right, got board arrangement. All right, let's talk a little bit about glue. So there's type 1, type 2, type 3, and now there's this new one called fast set. If you like type 1, that means that you're working indoors and you don't have any water contact. Type 1 has a very fast set time, so when you put the glue down, I believe it's somewhere between like 3 or 5 minutes that you have before the glue, it doesn't work as good anymore. This is according to type 1. You don't want to use type 1 if you think there's going to be any sort of environmental problems or water, anything like that, because it will come apart. It'll delaminate. Now, type 2 is what you want to use for your first step of water resistance. Type 2 is really good because it has still a fast set time. It's a little bit longer, but it's just about the same as type 1. And you can get, and the good thing about type 2 is it provides you that water resistance, but it leaves your glue joints clear, or you can get type 2 dark, so if you're using walnut, you might want to use type 2 dark rather than regular type 2.
What about type 3?
I'm getting right to that. So type 3 is the only one that is waterproof. Now, what's special, how they got to type 3, right, is they have a special test to determine its strength. Type 3 gets glued up, each type of glue for the tests they do, they get glued up into boards, like butcher block boards essentially, kind of like these ones right here, but smaller. In type 3, they actually boil the board before they expose it to cold, dry, water, heat, all those different things to see at what point it delaminates. Type 3 is the only one where they actually boil the board according to type bond, right?
There's another issue with type 3, it's the only food grade of the type that they have. 1 and 2 is not food.
Correct. So type 3 is also food grade, whereas the other two you can't use in a place where it'll contact food like cutting boards or charcuterie boards. Now speed set is something new from type bond, and it's basically a super fast drying glue, and it's just like type 1. It doesn't provide any water resistance. Now, just for anyone who wants to know the strength of the different glues, type 1 is around 3,200 psi. Type 2 is 3,500 psi. And type 3 is 3,900 psi. And believe it or not, the speed set is 4,200 psi. And all of that is pretty much irrelevant because wood, the strongest type of wood, snaps at 1,500 psi. And that's why your glue joints are stronger than your wood. Now, when you're doing glue ups, there's 2 methods where you can apply the glue. And in a more commercial setting, or like if you're gluing up a lot of boards, what's really important is to get a good glue line down and have it mostly centered. Now, if you want to take it to the next step, you can spread your glue and make sure it's contacting the whole surface. However, if you use a little excess glue like we do, you don't have to worry about that because you'll get an appropriate amount of squeeze out and it'll cover most of the glue. Now, if you're doing one project or you're doing something special, I would take your time and make sure that the whole gluing surface has an even coat of glue. When you're clamping your boards, believe it or not, 5 pounds of pressure will provide your strongest glue joint. So they did a test where they had 5 pounds of pressure on a glue joint, 100 pounds of pressure, and then 1,000 pounds of pressure. The 5 pounds of pressure provided the strongest one. At 100 pounds of pressure, you lost 15% of your strength. And at 1,000 pounds of pressure, you lost 30 to 50% of your strength. Now, this happens because you're actually squeezing a lot of the glue out from the joint. So when you squeeze out, it's not a big deal, but you don't want to give it that extra crank like this. Now I've squeezed some more glue out of that joint. You won't, unless whatever you're making, whatever project you're making is undergoing like extreme stress, you probably won't get a failure. Just to be clear, we have, in the past, before we learned this at Type On publicly, we would squeeze the heck out of our glue joints. We have a really cool JLT clamp rack, which is a commercial thing similar to this, but giant and 12 foot long. And we would make big tables and just crank them down and get lots of glue dripping out. Luckily, we haven't had a problem. But the whole point was you want to make just enough pressure to get a close, intimate joint with the glue. So that way there's still a layer of glue in there. The glue actually bonds to cellulose in the wood. So that's why it's important to have that material in there. Because if you squeeze it out, nothing will bond to the cellulose. One thing that I forgot to mention about when you're milling your wood, as you can see here, we're not going to be the greatest representation when it comes to this ambrosia, but you want to have nice sharp blades, right? Because when you have dull blades, like we did here, you'll tend to burnish the wood which is kind of sealing off the cellulose from the wood glue. So if you see something, I don't know who can see this, you see this black along the side? If it's not black and it looks shiny, you did the same thing. So you will get a weaker glue joint because of this. All right, let's see where we're at. So here, this is an ambrosia flat glue up. Right here we have an ambrosia and walnut butcher block style glue up. We have another one of those underneath this cherry glue up. And then this is a cherry and glue up. All right, we have some cool glue ups at the bottom, because what we're going to do here is show you, there we go. We're going to show you a little bit more about board arrangement and simple ways to make boards beautiful, especially when it comes to cutting boards. There's a lot of cutting boards that stand out, and they have these really cool geometric shapes, and they have all these little pieces that go together, and those are awesome. But they require a lot of sawing and like precise cuts to get a good job. What we're going to show you is a simple way to just book match cuts to make a really pretty design in your wood. Now here we're doing our presentation on these glue up racks that are meant for pipe clamps. All of these clamps provide a really flat surface, or all of these racks provide a really flat surface to glue up. And that's really important, because if you're gluing up on a crooked surface, your glue up's going to come out crooked. Even if you think your clamps are flat, it actually matters. So if you're at your shop, because no one's table is the same flat, and no one's table necessarily stays flat unless you have one of these awesome fabrication tables, right? So when you actually go to do your glue up, take a straight edge and just see where your high spots are, and you can use little pieces of wood to just shim your clamps, because most of the time people will put their clamps on a table, or sometimes they'll have a rack, or sometimes they'll have parallel clamps that they put on a table. But if you really want it to come out good, just put a shim underneath one of the heads to make sure that your pipe clamps are level both this way, both long ways like this, and at different angles, right? Because it can be flat here, it can be flat in the front, it can be flat in the back, but it could be still crooked this way, and it'll give you a warped board. Sorry about that.
I learned that the hard way, man.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way. Yeah, when we were actually prototyping these, we glued up some boards, and we thought they were flat, right? But they were still a little twisted, so the boards came out twisted. But yeah, we're using these racks right here, and these racks really are to save space and have a place for your clamps. I'm talking a little bit about them just till we get to the boards that I really want to show you guys. Each clamp holder holds 12 clamps perfectly flush at an angle, so that way your boards will sit into each other and also have gravity help you keep them flat. Now when Tyler's pushing down and squeezing down, it's really important, and we're not showing you in this demo, but it's actually kind of important, especially with pipe clamps, to put clamps on the top as well. Pipe clamps have a tendency to deflect. So what that means is when you're applying pressure, the clamp will bend this way. And it's not a lot, but that's why you want to put a good ratio is at least 3 clamps to the bottom to every 1 clamp up top. But we personally like to do 1 for 1. But not everyone has a lot of clamps. But 1 will counterbalance that deflection. And you can actually even see it in the wood. When you're tightening these down, and again, you don't want to go too tight because that'll make it deflect more and it'll make you have a weaker glue joint. But while you're going, you can actually look down the wood and see your clamp as you tighten it, pull the wood up and down, especially with pipe clamps.
That deflection happens in all the metal clamps and wood, so you just have to be careful how much you put pressure on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So here we have another, this is actually not a butcher block because it's a glue up, or it's a flat glue type of style, but it's just with thin strips. Like like I said before, just come around and you can see where we put the peaks and valleys on all of them. And that's following the grain because it's really hard to see the grain. One way you can actually see the grain easily is by like wetting the end just a little bit, not too much to ruin the wood, but you take like a damp rag or something and just wipe over it real quick, and that'll be enough time to give you the contrast you need to just see that grain, because that board alignment does make a difference. Get these clamps prepped here.
Yeah, I think the big one has to go on the end.
Yeah, that's with those boards right there.
Yeah.
No, we actually making them now. You know how these racks were born because of this presentation. I wanted to be able to show you guys the actual glue up without just doing it on a flat table with clamps. So we racked our brains a little bit, and then we looked at our commercial JLT system. Like, how do we do that, but for pipe clamps, just to show them? And then that's where this really came from. It was, kind of thanks to you guys that we came up with this. November 1st. You can actually pre-order these right now, and if you pre-order them, you get like free shipping, a really cool t-shirt, and you get to choose the color of your clamp. Whereas after production starts, you won't get to choose your color. It's whatever we come up with. Each of these clamp setups is $500 right now. And so it's they're all heavy-duty steel, all handmade, and they're all precise and modular. So if you wanted more glue-up space, we have these tabs right here where you can actually screw them together, and it'll provide you a perfectly flat, level, and flush glue-up surface, as many as you bolt together. All right, now we have.
We'll do one of these because this, I think, should go on the end for.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's pretty long.
Let's do this one for now because I want to show them these. All right, I'm going to take the last two. So here we have strips cut, 1 3/4 strips, and these initially were part of a glue up similar to this, but only 3 boards. We did an ambrosia board in the middle, surrounded by 2 maple boards. Now, this board measured about 2 to 3 feet, and this wide. It's about 16 inches, right? And to take it to the next level, we stripped them all out on the table saw at 1 3/4 because we like to plane an inch off of each side just to make it easy. And this will make you a really cool end grain board once you book match the pieces together. So once you cut them, you're going to cut them all, and you're going to leave them in order. And then you're going to flip and match the grain. And I don't know if you can see it too well, but I will pass around example boards of finished products in a second here. You want to book match these boards. And here you can also see an example where I put a line so I can line up exactly where I want it. It's much easier to line up a nice dark pencil line than it is to line up the glue seam between the boards. I'll pass some boards around. So I'll start this one over here. The butcher block. This is a book matched ambrosia and zebra wood. And I will put this one, go down the center here. This is a flat glue mixed wood. This one's an ambrosia here, and this is a flat glue salt and pepper, ash and walnut. So you can kind of see examples of what we're doing here in the finished form, and they'll get passed around.
My question to you is, what's the alternative
As to what?
to gluing up without, if you don't have that apparatus?
Well, you take them and you put these same clamps on your table flat, like I was talking about a little earlier. So just like this table here, you take your clamps and you set them out on a flat table. Make sure they're level with the straight edge, and then you'd put your boards in there just like you were laying them on the table. And then after that, Just close your clamps, tighten them up, 5 pounds of pressure. On that note, Typon said you could still use 100 pounds safely. Like, it's really hard to measure any amount of weight when you're doing a glue up. But the general idea is once you see that glue seam close, you're good to go. That's another reason you want as flat of boards as possible, because if the boards are bent, they're not going to be touching, so you're going to have to put more pressure, which in turn is going to be putting more pressure on the outer sides of your glue up, assuming they're bowed like this.
Do a big one, or are we gonna do one of these?
How many spaces we got left?
We got one.
One? Mm-hmm. Let's do this other end grain just to show them. Oh, it's a shorty boy. Nah, we'll just do the long boy.
This one?
The long boy. All right, this would be a great time if anyone has any questions.
My experience with hardwood and the planer, the knives need to be sharpened for hardwood about 9 degrees. If you use a different angle on the softwood, like pine or cypress or something like that, and you try to use hardwood on the same angle on your planer, you cut and dig and then you need to go with the grain.
Right. That's a great thing to say. Definitely going with the grain is something in milling that is, you definitely learn it over time. As soon as you rip out a whole face of ambrosia like this board or Purple Heart, you learn that you just have to spin it around and then you can send it again and you won't have that burr. Now, a board like zebra wood, which we don't have here, it tends to be directional through the whole board. And this is just a little information about milling. So if you find that you rip the grain out on one side and then you flip it, when you do the other side, you need to flip it again because it's going directional. Not all woods are like that, but woods like zebra wood are. But yeah, we guess we ran out of space here.
Yeah.
Got overzealous on the milling.
It's okay.
Have you tested the length, the longest pipe clamp you can use before it gets?
Yeah, it's 36 inches, so you could do a 24-inch glue up wide, but then after that, pipe clamps at 40, they're scheduled 40 pipes, so they bend at 300 pounds per square inch of pressure. Now, none of these boards will be 300 pounds per square inch, but where it's touching this metal, that little bit of space is actually giving you all of that pressure. It's giving you that full 300. So I would, something like this setup without multiple bolted together, I would only go as far as 4 foot, 2 inches thick by 24 inches. After that, you want to have more clamps. Another thing you can do though is you can upgrade your Schedule 40 pipe and you can buy a Schedule 80 pipe, which is thicker pipe, deflects less, much stronger. The threads don't rip off. A lot of times people have threads rip off where their pipe clamp is screwed in up here. That's because you're clamping too hard. But yeah, there it is. Here we glued up 9 boards with an average cost of $100. So in however much time we did here, I don't know what that is right now. Like we did $900 of glue ups, and we basically did most of this except for this board and these 2 ash pieces out of scrap. And oh, you know what? I do have one extra bonus piece of information about clamps. Clamps give pressure from one side at a 45 degree or 45 degree angle, right? So from your head here, it's actually going out at a 45 degree angle. So if you have really thin boards like this, you need more clamps closer than if you had wider boards like this. And the way I can demonstrate that, this isn't going to be exact angles here, but here's your 45s coming out. And they overlap before they get to the glue seam, right? Whereas right here, I might not even, it's right above the glue seam. So maybe not in this scenario, in practicality, on this glue up, because it looks like a nice tight seam to me. But you want to try to have it to where your 45s are crossing before your first glue joint, because after that it gets everything. But this is just a nice little bonus tip. If you see a gap, a solution to that would just be to put a clamp on top. And just to show you a reference of what I mean, use
We got two actually.
Use this giant clamp here. Just do it over here. Because these are end grain strips and they're 3/4 inch long, the 45s are not overcrossing. And when you're doing an end grain glue up like that, the board is really weak because the fibers are going straight up and down. They're not going long ways, right? So even clamping 3 here like we did, as soon as we put these 2 clamps on top, we got extra squeeze out in the center where the boards weren't making as good of contact. Is there any other questions about glue ups? Yes?
Are you milling those down after you glue them up then?
Yes. So after this glue up process, to get it to one of those finished boards, the first thing we'll do is plane it. If you're doing a flat grain or butcher block style glue up, you can go plain. You don't have to worry about it. Whatever you feel comfortable with. But when you glue up an end grain board, you want to take it little bits at a time, because end grain will tear your planer up. Tyler and I,
And itself up.
yeah, we have a tendency to overplane sometimes, so we've learned our lesson on that. But any other questions?
Maximum weight of boards
For what?
For the clamp.
Recommendations?
Just in general glue up?
Just in general rules.
Oh, you can go as wide as you want. We've glued up with pipe clamps, 6 foot wide, 12 foot long, on actually sawhorses outside. So you can do whatever you need to do, but the wider you go, especially with something like pipe clamps, you really want to balance out the pressure from top and bottom, because the wider you go, the easier it will flex up or down.
I was referring to the width of each board as you climb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but usually isn't there a rule of thumb of going how wide you should go? Alternate.
Yeah, that rule of thumb is how wide of a jointer do you have. So if you have a 16-inch jointer, you can do 16-inch boards, That's just a lot of face jointing. If you only have a 6-inch jointer, you can only do, 5 or 6-inch boards on a face joint. But again, if you don't want a face joint, or you can't face joint, or you don't make a planer sled, or insert any of the other ways to flatten a board, you can glue it up, watch it warp, and then get it flattened on a CNC or use a router to flatten it. And then your table will be nice and flat, but just a little skinnier. But yeah, that was our presentation. Oh, yes, sir. We actually build these. Yep, we build them. Yeah. Yeah. They're $500 each. So it's just the rack. It's just the rack. No clamps.
But they have a club special.
It does include shipping anywhere.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
How long do you leave your clamps on?
Good question, actually. I should have covered that. Right from Type-On's mouth, they told me that you can leave with Type-On 1, Type-On 2, you can leave it in 30 minutes, take it out.
That's enough.
That's enough. Type-On 3, he said 2 hours, right? Type-On 3 has a 9-minute set time and then a 2-hour don't touch it time. When we're building a long tabletop or countertop, we actually just go ahead and wait overnight. I have no science behind this, but I'll share with my opinion anyways. When the glue is wet, it's not fully hardened and it's still a little flexible. When you actually let it have that 24 hours overnight, it becomes completely hard. And in my opinion, you're not going to have as much movement after that, right? Because it's not a flexible material. If you ever take Type-On 2, even Type-On 3 for that matter, and you have like a nice glob of it, like one of these, just get it wet or hot or something, and you can feel that it's a little malleable. So my theory is the harder it is and the drier it is, the better it's going to be when you take it out of your clamps. Go ahead, sir.
Any tricks to route the ends when you're done?
You mean like flatten them out, like straighten them out?
I mean the rounding.
Oh, these right here?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
this is a chamfer. It is basically a 45-degree cut out of all the corners, and we actually use our joiner and tilt the side bed,
The fence.
whatever you want, the fence. We tilt it all the way to a 45. Set for this much of a chamfer, we set it to I think a 1/4 inch on this one. Big boy.
We might run that one twice.
Yeah, or you run it twice. But if you set it, you can actually just push it right there, and we don't use a router for this.
Totally can.
But you can. A router is just as easy. We're very, we don't have like all the cool tools yet, so we end up just clamping the boards to a table if we're using a router, and then just routing right there. But a roundover, can't do it with a joiner. Maybe you can, but I can't. So use a router for that. And also, yeah, there's a lot of edges you can put on it. Just any, yes, sir.
You say that type 3 is for waterproof or cutting boards?
It's the
Yes.
only one that's waterproof.
Food safe?
Yeah, it's the only one that's waterproof, and it's the only one that's food safe. If you're gonna do anything, like type 2 has water resistance, and that just means that over a certain amount of time, it won't delaminate, but it's not forever. And
Is there a reason you use any besides type 3?
that's what we feel. But yes, so if you're doing something really pretty, and it just needs water resistance, type 2 will offer you a lighter glue joint or a darker glue joint, depending on if you get regular or dark. Other than that, especially set time. So if it's important to you that it sets quick and you can take it out of your clamps quick, then stick with 1 or 2. If you have time or like a more extensive glue up, you go with type 3. Because actually, Type-On said the main reason they made it was to give woodworkers more glue up time. All right, any other questions, guys?
All right.
Oh, one right there.
Mineral oil to finish them? What do you use to finish them?
So we actually offer 3 finishes to our customers. We mainly do butcher block countertops and tables. We do an oil finish, which you'll see right here. Yeah, there's a lot of different types of oil finishes. They all apply the same, wipe on, wipe off. The second one we would apply, and if you're not using it as a cutting board, it can be like a food prep surface, but nothing to cut on. We use UV polymerizing finishes now. So that's a finish that goes on just like oil, but you use a high-powered UV light, and it instantly cures it. And then another finish you can use is like an epoxy pour-over, which a lot of our customers like. But that gives you that plastic feel. Oh, okay. All right.
All right. Tell everybody where they can find your videos.
Oh, yes, we are TNT Industries. We are a local wood shop out of Plant City, and we have a YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're fancy, we got it.
Under that name.
Under that name, you just look up
What's
TNT.
your address?
Our physical address?
Your woodworking address. I've got a lot of black walnut.
Oh wow, yeah, it's I can tell you afterwards. But all of our information is also public, so you can see it on our website or
Google or
anything. But yeah, we'll get with you after.
All right, well, let's give them a hand. Thank you. Great job.
Yeah, thanks.
Got a lot of show and tell.
Thank you.
So I think it's about 5 till. First of all, remember we have a library. If you're interested in checking something out, we've got it out here. Anyway, it's about 5 till. Yes, please.
Money? Yeah. We don't want to drop that. Donate to the club. Donate to the club. Give it away.
You're Tony, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you this time.
I'm
sorry about that.
Need to see you, my friend.
Thank you. All right, so we've got a lot of show and
for
tell,
sure.
so let's be back by, say, 8:15. I'll yell at you. And remember 50-50 if you're interested.
Put boards together that you're supposed to have, you can talk, right?
Yeah.